way or whatever. I've got a few points I want to cover. And like Jennifer said, if you have any questions, type them in. Jennifer will stop me and we'll deal with some questions. But I've got some bullet points. I want to just go through a bunch and give you a couple of small 3-minute, 2-minute stories to illustrate what I'm talking about. And we're going to cover a lot of things. We're going to cover the different kinds of edits and so on. So first thing that's super important for editing, super important, is the editor-author relationship. I think that it's so important for the book that you get along with your editor. And, you don't have to become friends. I get that. But you have to work with this person. And you are paying the money to do a job for you. And if it's another relationship in your life. I really feel strongly that your relationship with your editor has to work for you. It has to work for the book. For the book first, but it has to work for you. And I can explain that because my first couple of editors, there were some issues. And I actually at one point wondered, is it my issue? Am I too bullheaded? I don't like what they're saying, or I'm going to keep this scene. And there are scenes that I kept that they told me I didn't need. And I did do some pushback. So maybe I just don't have thick enough skin. Maybe I can't. So I go to another editor. And, finally in 2012, I found an editor that told me, blunt, you need to do this, you need to do that, with this scene or that scene or whatever. And this guy knew what he was talking about. And I'd say, well, wait, I don't get it. Why is this? Why is that? And he would say, oh, it's because of this, not the other thing. So it's for me, I need to know why. And this is the relationship I needed with my editor. I needed an editor who was willing to tell me why, not just say, well, I'm your editor, just do it. It doesn't work. I need to know why. And when my editor sat down and said, in a paragraph or two, I'm not making him work extra. It was a paragraph. Here's why. It was brilliant. And I get it. And once I get it, I can totally see how it doesn't work for my story. And I had to fix it. So this was a learning curve and a relationship that you need to have with your editor. I really feel strongly that if you feel that your relationship isn't working with your editor, try and make it work. But if you can't, get a new editor. There are a lot out there. So I really think that's so important. Further to that, I went through 6 editors over a 2-year period at one point till I found the one I use. The editor I signed on with in 2012, I used him for over 25 of my novels. And to this day, I just had an email a week ago from another writer saying I'm in need of a new editor. And I sent them to this guy. And this guy knows his business. And it's just incredible. He knows English like I've never seen. So, and I'm an editor. And sometimes when I have questions, I send it to him. Like, this guy knows everything. So anyway, this is the kind of editor I need. Confident and can tell me where it's at and doesn't pull any punches. So that's the relationship I need, because I think I know how to write a book and he can tell me different. So what do you need? It's a really important question, I think. And what can you get out of the relationship with your editor? And I believe it is a relationship. So I want to tell you a quick story about editing because I said I'm going to associate a few things to stories. This happened to me. And this may not happen to you. I kind of hope it doesn't. But this happened to me when I was starting. I was very new at writing. I've been writing, for 20-something years, but I was very new at writing novels. I was only on my second novel. And in 2004, I sent my work to an editor. I was using one of the top editors in New York, freelance, and sent it to this editor, and they did the run-through. They sent it back to me. And so this was late 2004, early 2005, I got it back. It took me about 8 months to go through the book. I wasn't a full-time editor at the time. A full-time writer at the time. I was working with my business, so I was busy. I had 2 young children at home, so I could, dedicate so much time to performing these edits. So it took me 6 to 8 months to do these edits. I sent it back late 2005 to do another run-through. Long story short, I got it back again. I did all those edits. We've gone through 2 rounds now. I'm out $4,000. It was 2,500 for the first round, a couple thousand for the second. So we're on the second run now. I look at it. I've done the edits. There are scenes that I don't understand. So much has changed. Doing developmental. They're showing, anyway, long story short, I think the book needs more help. So I talked to my editor. We actually need to get together because we need to go through, there's so many things to deal with. This is late 2005, early 2006. I decided to go to New York. So travel expenses, I head to New York. I spend a week in New York. I do an intensive manuscript clinic with my editor. We even tour a few agencies while we're in New York. I'm finally getting excited. I'm getting closer and closer. It's been 2 years worth of edits. The New York trip cost me another couple grand. I'm hoping this doesn't happen to you guys out there. I was at $6,000 at this point, and here's what happened. When I went through this intensive New York clinic with this editor, with this manuscript that we've gone through twice, there were so many changes. I, as a writer, had learned so much. I had evolved character development, character motivation. I had learned about emotion on the page. I had learned about tension and conflict. I had learned so much that I went home and I deleted the book from my hard drive. I deleted the book from my hard drive and I typed chapter 1 and I rewrote it from chapter 1.
Oh my gosh.
The book had been changed so much with so many edits. When I looked back to the first draft, I couldn't believe what I had written. I had evolved. By the way, I wasn't just doing these edits and then, I have to rewrite this, so I'll rewrite this chapter. Oh, you know what? Let's just rewrite the book. No. I was going to writers' conferences. I was going to the Surrey one in Vancouver. I went to the Willamette conference in 2005 in August to Portland, Oregon. I was going to conferences. I was reading book after book, Saul Stein's book. I can list them all. I was reading book after book on how to write, how to do this, how to do that. I was studying the craft. And after 2 to 3 years and $5,000-6,000 in edits, I deleted the book. I rewrote it, and man, was it hot. Now I just need an edit, because I was able to create a new writer for this novel. I felt that. So that's really the story. By 2008, we went through a few more edits. And then finally, in 2010, I decided to self-publish, and I self-published Dark Vision, Sarah Roberts, book number 1. After all those years, I wrote it in 2002, and it hit the street in 2011. And it's my best-selling novel to date. And everyone loves book 1. And book 1, Dark Visions, got a multi-book deal in 2016 worth an enormous amount of money and has recently been signed for a movie in Hollywood.
Oh, congrats.
And I spent well over $10,000, I think, in 10 years getting it ready. Now that's book 1. Book 2, much faster. I evolved as an author. So that's my editing story. And for the beginning, I have a few other things, many more things to tell you here, but that's my beginning story. And I hope that kind of, I don't know if it's dedication or stupidity or what it is, but that nobody needs to be spending $10,000 to edit their book. I was out of control.
I have a question.
Sure.
Okay. Sorry to interrupt, but this is actually holding on since before your story. So with the editors, here's a question. So a number of the publishers have their own in-house editors. What happens when you have an editor and they want you to use the in-house editor? Is that where you cut a deal and say, no, I want to use my own editor? Or what's the options available, to a first-time writer?
You don't have any options. Not that I'm aware of. My book sold to a publisher. I've sold to many publishers, several. When it sells, that means they own it. They own the rights. They pick the cover. They pick what goes in the book. They own the intellectual property now, the copyright. It's theirs. They often sign for film, TV rights. They often sign for international rights. When I sold my first Sarah books, they put it through their editors. And even though it was fully edited, they went through their own round because they bought this item and then now they're going to put it on the street at Barnes & Noble, at Chapters Indigo across North America. My book is about to hit the street, and it did, but it's on their terms, their dollar, their marketing, their publicists, their PR. Their editor sent me 6 months after the contract was signed. They sent me a copy so I could look at the edited version. They had questions. They had character development questions. I spent weeks, months going over all their edits. They wanted me to accept or reject. And if I didn't like what I saw, any changes I made had to be in track changes so that their editors could accept my changes. There were many things I didn't like. They were taking away Sarah's voice at one point. There were things I didn't like. I readjusted and deleted some of their comments and some of their changes, and I explained why. They accepted some of those things from me. I really didn't get a choice, and I could tell them, it's been edited several times. I can hire my own editor, whatever. That doesn't matter. It's the publishing house, and they've got their in-house editors. Now that's my experience. Someone else may have a different one, but I've never heard of an author, once a publishing house buys it, they have their own editors, their own copy editors, their own proofreaders. They have their own process, and you're only involved as a courtesy. I know that sounds harsh, but here's the thing. They will make you money. They generally, they're supposed to. They want to make money too. My books hit Barnes & Noble across the United States, and they went on the front shelf the same day Stephen King's book, I forget the title off the top of my head, but it was the same day, September 26th, 2017 was the same day Stephen King's book came out, and my books were sitting side by side with his. The amount of sales, Barnes & Nobles across the U.S. sold almost sold out of my first title. And so it was a wonderful experience.
Wow.
Sometimes with publishers, you have to do it on their terms and it'll be okay. So keep going, or do you have another question you think we should address?
There's a question from Lou. For your series writing, how do you have your writing checked for continuity? Is it your beta readers that do that?
Yep, it is. It's my main editor, but also beta readers. Beta readers, look, my beta readers are gold. They have the series memorized. I have a couple that have read the series over half a dozen times. In fact, I have one beta reader who's going through it all again right now. She's on book 18 or 19. My beta readers constantly do this and report to me and often message me that, I forgot all about this in book 14, that Sarah did that. Oh, that's funny, or things like this. And I keep a heavy log on what has happened, where it's gone. In almost every book, I refer to something from another book. In fact, my current one, book 24 coming out, there's a reference to something that happened to a character back in early books. There's a reference, Sarah, in a couple times, book 22, 23, Sarah refers to something that happened in book 5 and likens it to something that happened in Los Angeles in book 11. So I really just, yes, it was Stephen and Owen's book. Sorry, I just saw a comment pop up. It was the book with Stephen King and his son Owen. They wrote together something about Sleeping Beauties. The title just evades me at this time. So I really focus on making sure the series has that continuity, and I don't make mistakes. I have made mistakes. When I was new at this, when I was on the end of book 3 to the beginning of book 4, I made a major mistake, and readers pointed it out. I had to go and rewrite the end of book 3, Sleeping Beauties. That's it. Thank you, Lou. And I had to rewrite a little bit of the beginning of book 4. So you've got to be careful. I learned, and now I'm careful with writing the series. So a couple of quick points. Find an editor, as I said, you get along with, but find an editor you get along with their personality. Find one that you can afford. Don't overpay, but at the end of the day, don't forget, you get what you pay for. If you're paying for a $300 editor, you're going to only get a $300 edit. Sorry, my light just went out. We're back. And it kind of depends on what you're going for. If you're looking for a developmental edit, I'm going to break those kinds of edits down in a moment. And where do you find a good editor? I'm going to talk about that in a moment too. But you kind of have to make sure that what you're paying for instance, developmental editor or substantive editor will cost you more than just a proofreader or a copy editor or a line editor. And, you know, if you want me to proofread your manuscript, it's just a few $100s. That's no problem, because all the edits are done. The book, I'm just reading a book now and making sure that everything is, you know, ready to go. But a developmental edit, we're not doing line edits or proofreads at that point. So I can cover a bit of that. So I also recommend you find one available to your timetable. So you want to, you've written your book, you've done some beta reading, you've done some critique group, you've done things, and you're thinking it's, this is August, I would love to have my book out by September. Well, probably pretty sure that's not going to happen. Your editor's going to take a month, or mine takes at least a month with my books. And that's fast. Some editors are going to take longer. You're going to take a couple months to do the edits. So if you want it out in September, yeah, you know, you're going to get a fast edit then. You can find someone to do it that fast. So you want to really work with someone who, think Christmas. If it's August, get it out for Christmas. It's your fastest. But you know what? I know people that do it quicker. So it can happen, but find someone that fits your timetable. And finally, this is so important. I've seen this mistake often. Find an editor that will edit in the language that you need it edited in. And what I mean by that is I'm talking about Canadian English or American English. Find an expert in the one you want. There is a huge difference between the two Englishes, and there's 5,000 differences between the two. In my opinion, you do want American English. You do want that. In my opinion, even as a Canadian. I was born in Toronto. I've lived in the Toronto area, Ontario. I've lived in British Columbia. I've lived in Calgary. I lived in Calgary for 4 years. I'm through and through total Canadian, eh? But everything I read is in American English.
So switch your keyboard over. And we have a question. Going back to that story about the editor and the publishing house, does the publishing house still own the rights to Sarah Roberts?
Yep. Now, that's a tricky answer. I say yes because they do. Here's the thing.
Right.
When I sat down with them to negotiate the sale, I was in Los Angeles. I flew down to LA. I was pitching to the studios. I got an offer from Sony Pictures to buy the series to make for TV. I had to decline that offer because I had another offer that was bigger that I can't talk about right here on camera yet. There's several reasons of confidentiality on that. Some other stuff is happening behind the scenes. But anyway, I was selling the print to publish the book. And we sat down. They're like, oh, we love the Sarah Roberts series. They actually shook my hand and said, we're so happy to be part of the Jonas Saul business. You know, it was a really good feeling. We love your books. We're ready to buy them. Here's our offer. And I said to them, I appreciate everything you've come to me with. I love all of it, but I'm not selling my ebooks. And they stopped and said, well, wait a sec. Well, we buy the whole thing. We buy all of it. Meaning I'd have to, because I was self-published before this. I had sold 2 million copies on my own. I was pitching in LA. I had Sony offering me a movie deal. It was a TV series deal. I had the deal in print ready to be signed. And these guys were saying, we'll offer this. But I wasn't going to sell my ebooks. And I said, find a way to make it work, but I'm keeping the ebooks. Serialized ebooks, Dark Visions, the Warning, the Crypt, book 1, 2, 3, 4, all the way up. I keep the rights to the ebooks. They found a way, and they still bought it, and they still paid a lot of money, and they bought everything but my serialized ebooks. So if you went to Amazon and bought Dark Visions or The Warning, those are mine. Nobody owns those. I own them.
Good deal.
Nobody else owns them, I should say. But they bought the print, and they bought ebook rights for the version they created for print. And the contract stated Jonas retains all rights.
So I can tell you about contracts a little bit. There's all kinds of publishing contracts, as Jonas was talking about the different rights. And it's extremely important that you review a contract. If you're not familiar with contracts, it's a really good idea to talk to a lawyer to get them to review a contract. Even if they're not a publishing contract lawyer, they'll still be able to advise you of the differing clauses and how they might affect your business terms going forward in a relationship of a contractual basis. But like Jonas has mentioned, he retained the e-rights for his future books. So that's a very important distinction in the contracts. So publishing contracts, I think, is maybe something that we might have to add for our ideas for a panel next year, for sure. And another question. The whole agent relationship thing, I think, is going to be much like the book editor relationship, something you work upon. And yes, it is actually better to find a publishing contract lawyer if you can. You will find that even in large cities that there's not a huge amount. It's a very niche kind of thing. However, getting a referral is probably a good idea. And your agent probably is going to be somebody that can help you with that once you have one. So Dark Vision is on Audible. Interesting. I did not know that. And that's Sarah Roberts' book #1. And it's 6 hours, 45 minutes, according to one of our participants. Right now, we've got about 78 participants. And I have a comment here from Robert Ronte. Thank you, Robert. Publishers always have their own editors who do the who re-edit your edited book, because your editor was trying to make your book as good as it could be to bring out your vision. And the publisher's editor's job is different. Their job is to edit the book to make it fit with the publisher's vision. So, for example, the rest of their imprints line, and to be as commercial as possible. So they will likely want to change your vision a tiny bit to maximize sales. So for instance, change Calgary to New York, because Americans might identify with New York more than Cowtown, or if I were going to say a sister city, maybe Denver. A bad example, but you get the idea. So expect to be edited by their editor, but you still need your editor to get in the door to their editor. Okay, so Jonas has texted me, and it sounds like he's lost internet for whatever reason, and we're not sure if he's going to be, oh yeah, he's going to be able to get back in, and he's working it out as we speak. So we just have to hold on, and he'll be right back with us. And you know what, we'll probably let this one go a little bit longer than what it did before. So we'll add a few more minutes to the end. Welcome back, Jonas. And we've got a whole slew of questions for you. So I'll just ask you if you're ready for some questions, and I'll start lining them up for you.
Yes, I'm so sorry. My internet just kicked out, and I couldn't get logged back in. So here we are. Let's really enjoy these last 20, 30 minutes. Sorry about that. Go ahead.
No worries. We're going to go a little long on this one anyways. So do editors allow more inner emotions versus outer emotions in genres other than thrillers, for instance, romance or women's fiction, or do they tend to delete these sections believing less is more?
Oh, that's a great question. My opinion, from what I understand, is they add more inner conflict, inner emotion is amazing in any book, in any genre, really, especially romance. In fact, romance relies a lot on inner more than outer emotion.
Okay, good to know. And another person in chat had asked if you do any YA editing.
Yes, I actually edit every genre, everything, anytime it's English. The only thing I can specialize in developmental edit when it comes to thriller, horror, fast pace, because I'm a pace writer. I enjoy massive pace, lots of flow, racing along. So that's where my specialty is as a writer, as an editor. But when it comes to, I have edited many YA, and I do understand the differences and have no problem with doing everything from a line edit to a proofread to a copy edit to even a developmental, where we just, I'll do a read through and we can discuss where you're going with this characterization, this story. How about we add this? How about we add that? What do you think about this? And so on and so on. So we could do a little bit of that too. But I do edit basically anything.
Well, this is good to know. I'm guessing that your email is going to fill up with lots of requests. And speaking of which, do we want to provide your email in case anybody does want to send you edits? So if
that was part of my what I also was going to say was, you want to interview an editor. You want to interview them. You want to send them a chapter or 3 pages, and then they'll do it for free. Well, any reputable editor will, and let them edit those 3 pages and send them back to you. And I can do that for anybody who was looking for an editor. And even if I get 100 people looking for an editor, it's not a problem. And if you decide to hire me, then I would schedule you. And I know I'm working into a month or 2 away from now for several jobs. And I've got another couple jobs lined up for closer to Christmas. But definitely interview and see if that person works for you. And then go from there. So anybody wants to email me, I'm at Jonas Saul at iCloud.com. So it's one word, my name, Jonas Saul at iCloud.com.
Great. And another question, I hope you don't mind, but we got a bit of a few I asked everybody to pour in. So we've got not an editing question, but does the story drive your next location for research and living, or does the location intrigue you first?
Interesting question. For me, it's a bit of both. Which one comes first, though? For me, it's always story, plot. Often, I have an odd system. I don't think other writers work the way I do, because I come up with titles first, often. For book 15, Sarah Roberts, I had no idea what I was going to have her do. I had finished book 14. It's called The Abandon. It's about human trafficking. Sarah had been to Amsterdam. She'd been to Greece. I lived in Greece at the time. Sarah's been to Italy when I lived in Italy for a year. So I have my main characters go where I go, and I can put them in locations because I've been there. And I had taken a month off between books, or a month and a half, and I was really scratching my head. What am I going to do for book 15? And I had never done anything in Mexico. I'd never done a cartel. And I thought, oh yeah, this is great. Okay, I'm going to, so I came up with this idea for a cartel. So I thought I'd call the book The Cartel. And so Sarah, book 15's The Cartel. And then I start to learn the plot from there. So, I have Sarah Roberts books titled all the way to book 30. And I have no idea what's happening in the book 27 or 28 yet, but I've got the title. So I title a book, and that gets me thinking about plot. Then I create plot that fit the title. This is what I do for Sarah. I don't do that for my standalones. My standalones, I create plot and come up with a title. So I really have my own system that really works for me.
And Colleen and Richard would like comments about self-editing.
Oh, self-editing is fantastic. There's a lot of books out there. Elizabeth Lyon has a great book on self-editing. I recommend it. Do as much as you can, but you can't self-edit and then publish. And that's all you've done, in my opinion. Self-editing only takes you so far. So let's say a fully edited book you got to hit 10 levels to get fully edited. You can self-edit all the way up to level 8, but no one can ever get to level 10 self-editing. Actually, no one that I'm aware of.
And that includes you.
It's a level 10, send it to me. I'll show you where you still need some editing. Yeah, I have an editor. There's no way I could edit my own work, and I'm an editor. Stephen King has an editor. We all have editors. And people send back edits to rewrites. I know this. He's talked about it. So we all need an editor. And the bad reviews on Amazon, they're there because people self-published and they only self-edited.
Gotcha. So in other words, really, really take it seriously to invest in a good editor.
Well, and I've often said this writing thing is a business, and I've talked at I did a master class last year, and I talked about it's like opening a restaurant, and I likened it to you got to find a location, then for a restaurant, then you're going to buy signage, you're going to buy advertising to say you're opening it in New York, you're going to advertise in New York that you got this new restaurant. What's different about how is your restaurant original that people would want to come and eat there? How is your book original? You're going to get a book cover. That's your signage for your location. You're going to advertise. So you're going to put it up at BookBub or Book Gorilla, these email places. It's like opening a restaurant. You're opening a business. So you really need to focus that. You have to invest in this thing. And you're going to spend a couple of years investing into this business and not make any money. This often happens. So you're investing with your cover art. You're investing with your editor. You're putting money into your business. I treat it as a business to the degree that when I started writing, I went and incorporated my business. I hired a lawyer and I got an incorporation and I put it through an accountant. And so I own Imagine Press and all my books go through Imagine Press. Like I treat the whole thing like I've opened up a business. Behind the scenes, my reader doesn't see any of this or need to know any of this. But the point is you have to think of it on those terms, I think, and not just I'm going to write a book and self-edit and put it up on Amazon because that's all free and I don't have any money. And that's fine. I appreciate where those people are coming from, but take the time to save $400 or $500 or $600 and get this thing edited. Even if you just hire someone for a proofread, they will tell you some of these things.
And make sure that they're a real editor. And sometimes I think for anything significant that you're going to spend money on, especially something very personal, like a business project, like a book, that you want to get a referral, or at least, somebody that is a professional, a real professional like yourself. Another question. So where did you learn your rights negotiations that you were talking about? The participant says, I wouldn't have a clue how to do that. Are lawyers involved, or is it a trial and error, or just knowledge you gained over your career?
I'd say knowledge I gained over my career, and I'll tell you why. I was 17 years old in high school, and I opened up my first business. And by the time I was 20, I was fully self-employed. I owned multiple retail stores for 20 years, and I was retired by the time I was 30. I read business book after business book on everything. I read books on how to negotiate. I read a book that said, say no until your tongue bleeds when you're negotiating. And I studied all this business stuff for years. I incorporated my first business when I was 17. So I've always just wanted to, I've never had a job or worked for someone else in that regard. I've always just did my own thing. So when it came to writing, I treated it like a business. And this is what's worked for me. So when it came to negotiating, I knew that rights were divvied up. There's these rights, those rights, these rights, those rights, and they have that all in the contract. And you can see all of it very clearly. At the time, I had sold over 2 million books, and I was making, all right, I'll throw a number out there. Let's say I was making over $200,000 a year, self-published, doing my own thing, traveling the world. I was negotiating a deal for a Sony Pictures deal. I had paperwork, and these people wanted to just buy my ebooks that I had created that was giving me my income. And I said, they're not for sale. I would rather walk away and keep my income and keep building my brand. I already had a business. I already had a publishing company, and I already had everything I needed. If you want to buy my books, you can buy my print because I'm not in Barnes & Noble in print. Fine with me. You can buy my film TV rights but the deal has to be better than the Sony Pictures deal. Fine. You can buy blah, 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 but you can't have my ebooks because those are the ones that are, I've outranked Stephen King on Amazon. I've got pictures to prove it. I did that. So you can't come in and buy it all unless you're willing to pay me a fortune. That was I said 10 million. Yeah, 10 million, you can have it all. Right.
Yeah, we have another question. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Sorry. We're running out of time.
No, go ahead.
So while you were experiencing technical issues, it came out that you've got a number of audiobooks, and the question is, have you any experience with editing in terms of audio versions of your books?
Yep, I edited mine. I was the one who interviewed the voices, the speakers. I ended up using B.J. Harrison, who did the audiobook for the case of Benjamin Button, the Curious Case of Benjamin Button, the Brad Pitt movie. I used B.J. Harrison, who also did Edgar Allan Poe books. I went through dozens and dozens of voices. I did the interviews. Then when he was doing it, he would send me sections and portions, and I would sit and listen to them as per the book in front of me and making sure he was reading it well. I did all that. And I would send back edits to him, and he would go back into the studio and fix it. So yes, I've done all that. Very easy process. I did it with Audible. They make it very easy. Wonderful process. I had a great time with it. And there's no learning curve. I mean, there is, but when I say there's no learning curve, it's super simple.
Great. So you were going to talk about the different types of editors, and the question from Stephanie is, what is a reasonable amount of money for each different type of editor?
This, I think it's pretty wide, and I'll tell you why. For instance, a developmental edit, I charge $15 per 1,000 words. And I've been told I'm cheap. I'm really low end. So say you have a 100,000 word manuscript. That's 1,500 for a developmental edit for me, 1,500. If your manuscript's 100,000 words. If you just want a line edit, which is a different kind of copy edit, line edit, sort of, I charge about $10 for every 1,000 words. So you're looking at about $1,000 for 100,000. So I've actually had other editors email me and tell me my price is too low. There are developmental editors charging $3,000 and $4,000. So you can pay a lot. I do give discounts to friends, people I know. And I do give bulk discounts. And what I mean by that is I've got one author who gives me a book every 2 months. So he has a 20% drop sort of thing, because I'm constantly getting his books. And if you're gonna work with me because we met at this conference, you will get a discount too. So we will make sure that we're all doing well and getting our books put out there. But basically, developmental edit, substantive edit are the ones that cost the most. It goes from there to copy edit, line edit, and all the way down to a proofread. If you just want me to proofread it, I'll go as low as $300, $400 for a proofread. But if you ask for a proofread and the book is a mess, that's not a proofread. A proofread is after already you've done the copy edit, already you've done the developmental with another professional. So my proofread is the lowest price, because it's something I really should be just reading the novel and double checking a few things, if that helps.
This is probably a good newbie question. So this coming from me, sort of encapsulating everything. So there's different kinds of edits, but is there sort of a scale, the levels at which you start and then the level to which you progress? So would you start with copy edit and then move to a developmental, or is there something, that you have a suggested idea for?
Yes. If you feel that through your beta readers and so on, that your book, your plot and everything's all set and you're ready to go and you don't want a developmental, you can jump right into copy edit, line edit. You can jump into those kinds of things. But if you do want a developmental, you should do that first. Substantive, developmental should be first. The reason is, during a developmental, you may have whole scenes that don't match and you need to pull them out. You may have other scenes that scene on chapter 20 needs to be at chapter 12. Oh, and the author's like, oh, I see that now, changing all kinds of things. In the middle of a 4,000 word chapter, you may need to take things out and rewrite it. So doing a line edit first, you're gonna have to do another line edit now. So I would once the book is done, developmental is done, then you go to line, then you go to copy, then you go, and a line, like, give you an example. Line editing covers awkward phrasing, repetitive words, telling versus showing, passive voice, dialogue inconsistencies, punctuation, so on. So if you're doing developmental, you're going to be throwing in awkward phrasing. You're going to be throwing in passive voice. You may tell and not show. So you should be doing line edits after. Copy editor handles other things. And finally, the proofreader is somewhat of the final eyes to this thing. I hope that helped. Also, yes, I did see a question. I wanted to make sure everyone knows that yes, you can hire the same person. In fact, when I'm hired for developmental, I do the developmental, send it back. Once those edits are done, then I can be the same person to do the copy edit, to do the line edit. Oh yeah, you can have the same person.
Familiar with the work. Yes.
Yep,
Quick question.
Yep. In fact, it's best.
What is a reasonable price for a developmental edit on a short story of 8,000 words?
8,000? Oh, well, not much. I mean, I don't know what other editors would charge. Some would charge a couple hundred for that. It wouldn't be a lot. I mean, I charge $15 per thousand. So if it's 8,000, I mean, we're only looking at about $110, $120 for me for developmental for 8,000. And when I charge for developmental, my website has all of this, jonassaul.com. Under the button freelance shows you my prices and what I will give. But when you hire me for a developmental, I also throw in the line edit. There's no other charge for line edit. You just pay the one fee.
Oh, that's awesome. That's awesome. Okay, so this can be answered later. Jonas mentioned a self-editing book by Elizabeth Lyon. Do you remember the title?
Yeah. It's got a blue cover, and I think it's The Writer's Guide to Fiction or something like that. I don't have it off the top of my head. Okay. Self-edit, Benjamin Dreyer's book he's the copy chief editor at Random House. His book's called Dreyer's English. That's a terrific one. Go to Grammar Girl, Quick and Dirty Tips. She has a book on Amazon. It's an incredible book for self-editing. There are a number of ones out there that I recommend.
And do you edit short stories?
Oh yeah, I edit everything. I have a short story writer out of BC that uses me every 2 months. And I've got references on the website. Sorry.
Of course. How do you scale your rate based on the skill of the writer and their publishing credentials, or does it even come into it?
Doesn't come into it at all. First book, first author, first time, never written before in their life, I did it. Or I've actually, I have authors who are thriller authors that I edit who have written 20 books and they hire me. So it doesn't matter.
Okay, and we're in the last 5 minutes here. So anybody, Jonas, is there something that you absolutely want to say?
I had a number of other things. One quick thing that I think is funny that I'd like to add. If you weren't in my masterclass last year, When Words Collide, you would know this if you've been there, but I think this is funny. Editing can be good for publicity too. Let me explain that quickly. I wanted to get an interview at the local newspaper where I lived at the time, and I couldn't get in. I had a publicist working on it. They wouldn't interview me. So I went to their website and I was reading all the news, and I saw a little button at the bottom said, report a typo. So I started editing their work, and I reported a typo. Then I reported another. I reported a grammar error. And every day I did this for weeks. And then I got a letter from, it's right here, from Kelowna Now. I can show it. I'm not in trouble for this. It's by Karen Montgomery. It's the CEO of the company. And she says, hey, I just want to send a message out there. It's an honor that you're reading and taking the time to send us all these typos and fixes. That's great. I responded, kind, an email, and I sent back this wonderful email. And then I got another letter 12 days later from Kent saying, hey, Jonas, you want to come on in and we'll do an interview? And I got my interview. So I was my own publicist. I called my agent and said, I got in. She said, how did you do that? We've been trying for months. And I said, I edited them. So don't do it on Facebook. Don't do the grammar Nazi thing. But when you want in, that was a fun way to get in. I just had that story. I wanted to tell it.
So I've noticed you've mentioned interesting ways to catch attention. And somebody mentioned doing book reviews. Do you think that's a good thing to start with in terms of just getting your name out in a small way to test the water?
Sure. All that stuff is positive. Yes. You know what you want to do, though, is you want to get your name on BookBub. They have book profiles. Get your name on BookBub, set up a profile. There's a follow button. I'm almost at 12,000 followers, and every time a book comes out, 12,000 emails are sent out. Jonas Saul has a new book. All 12,000 people see my new title. Get on BookBub. When you get there, go and recommend someone's book. They will see that you recommended their book. Then they might, oh, who's that? I do this all the time. And then my followers get emails saying who I'm recommending. I recommended C.C. Humphreys. C.C. Humphreys recommended my book, The Immortal Gene. This swap we do, Dwayne Clayton's book, Kat Flannery's book. I'm recommending these people on BookBub, and it's going incredible. And my followers, I'm getting followers every day, and they're getting followers. And it's this handshake. It's much better than going, Goodreads is great, Amazon's great, leave reviews, do lots of interaction, be social on social media, but get on BookBub and get yourself up and tell me that you're there. I'll go hit your follow button.
Wow, that is awesome. That is a great piece of information. Thank you, Jonas. Okay, so I think there was one that we did not get to. So I think we talked about, about how do you know that you've done all you can do with your draft and it's time to seek an editor?
Okay, first off, one thing you need to know, books are never finished. They say books are never finished, they are abandoned. You must write, go through it a couple times, you think you're happy with it. If you reread it, you'd make another change. You could reread it 12 times and make other changes. There's a point where you must just abandon the book and give it to another set of eyes. I personally only do a couple drafts before I start showing it to other people. Only a couple. But I have written 38 novels. So my process is quicker. I write faster. I get it done. I put it aside. I reread it. And then I send it out to fresh eyes. And I get working on the next book. And my editor and so on sees it. So I do believe abandon that thing. Get it gone. Get it out of your way and get on to another book and get other people reading it. Get your editor involved. The editor will take a month or two with it. Get it back. Do your edits. You're going to love it. It's going to come together faster than if you just kept holding on to it and rereading it.
Great advice. So we talked about self-editing before, but what is your method for your own self-editing? Because you've got it down to a fine art. You're on your 40th novel, whatever. And and you mentioned that you do word searches. That's one of your things.
I do the word searches when I'm getting a client's manuscript. My own, I don't ever use the word vary or suddenly or intensifiers and modifiers. I don't do split infinitives. I don't make these kinds of mistakes because I am an editor. I can see it pretty easily when I'm writing. That my self-editing ability is a notch higher, I think, because I've done it so often but I still need an editor. But so for me, I just write the novel, first draft. And then when I go back, I'm doing my self-edit. When I go back through, but I'm also I'm developmental editing and line editing when I go back through my own manuscript, but I'll often go back through and read it out loud. It's terrific to read it out loud, but you see, there's something I do that I can't read it out loud with people around. Because when I'm reading it and there's a high intention scene, I'm reading and then, she grabbed the gun, and I start doing it with this motion. And then someone screams, "Get out of the way!" And I'm screaming it while I'm reading it because I need to feel that it's real. So that's what I do. And if somebody's in the other room listening, they're laughing. So generally I read out loud and I emphasize everything. And I change voices even for my characters. Like I'm reading to somebody. And I make it exciting because I need to feel that excitement when I'm reading it. And if I find I don't feel it, I'm rewriting it.
So you read it through like an actor?
Yep, I do. Absolutely.
Interesting. And I have noticed when you read something, you often find words that you've missed or that are words that need to be added, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And here's my last question, then we'll wrap up. Do you ever record you reading your work?
No, never. I don't. People do. There's nothing wrong with it. Go ahead. I have never. I don't like the sound of my own voice.
I hear you. I hear you. Okay, well, Jonas, this has been incredible, and we managed to survive through the technical issue. And I'll leave it in your hands to wrap up. I'll just remind everybody this is recorded, and you will be able to watch this again at your leisure in the next week or so.
Yes, thank you everyone for joining. Thanks so much. And if you do want, you don't even have to hire me. If you just want a few points on your first 3 pages, send them to me. It's not a problem. I just can't guarantee a time to return it. It could be a couple weeks. I'm very busy and I have multiple manuscripts in front of me. So jonassaul.com, jonassaul@icloud.com. Reach out, let's chat, get these books tightened up and ready to go.
Well, Jonas, thank you so much for staying up late, and we're glad that you resolved your technical issue. And thank you for the amazing advice. I have no doubt that you are going to be flooded with a deluge of emails and requests for manuscript review and edits and whatnot. And we look forward. When is the next book coming out?
10 days. 9 days from now is the next one. In October, the end of October is Sarah Book 25, and the end at Christmas is Sarah Book 26. And I've got 3 books at publishers. I don't have dates for those.
Oh my goodness. Well, we'll have to check out your website just to stay on top of everything that's happening. And your Facebook page, right?
BookBub, Facebook page, BookBub. Hit the follow button on BookBub or Amazon. You'll have all the emails from them that you need. I don't do a newsletter. Do a newsletter because BookBub handles it all for me.
There you
for
go.
free. There's no charge to have a BookBub page.
Make a BookBub account and get out there. Thank you, Jonas. Amazing. I'm gonna take this and sleep on it, and I'm sure we're all going to be emailing you in the next 10 minutes.
Anytime. Anytime. Always around. I do this full time, all the time.
Awesome. Awesome. Thank you, everybody, for joining us. This is with When Words Collide 2020, the COVID version, online, and with excellent panelists. And thank you so much for volunteering your time and helping us out, all us newbies out here. So, and some of us
Thanks so much.
Not so new. Okay, guys, take care, stay safe, stay home.